The first time I heard it, I thought it was just interference. I was working the overnight shift at WKRP, our small town's AM radio station. It was 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday when the static started bleeding through during the weather report. Nothing unusual about that. Our equipment was older than disco, and we regularly picked up CB chatter from truckers passing through on Route 9. But this wasn't CB chatter. It was a voice. Distant, distorted, but unmistakably human. Speaking in what sounded like backwards English. I leaned closer to the mixing board, adjusting the levels, trying to isolate the signal. The voice said something that sounded like ayu, fund, iv. The hair on my arms stood up. I had been doing this job for 3 years, and I had never heard anything like it. The voice had this quality, desperate and pleading, like someone trapped at the bottom of a well screaming up at a circle of light they would never reach. I grabbed my phone and started recording. The signal lasted maybe 30 seconds before fading back into static. I played it back, adjusting the audio, trying to clean it up. When I reversed the playback, my blood went cold. The voice clearly said, "I have found you. You are here." That was Monday night. By Thursday, 3 more people in town had heard it. Mrs. Chen called the station during my shift, her voice shaking. She told me that the voice on the radio spoke to her through her kitchen radio at 3 a.m. It knew her name. It said her name backwards. Then Jake from the hardware store called. Same thing, 3 a.m., voice calling his name in reverse. Then Sarah, the librarian. But Sarah's story was different. She said the voice didn't just know her name, it knew where she lived. It told her, in that horrible backwards speech, exactly what she was wearing, what she was eating, what she was thinking about. I started staying late, monitoring all the frequencies. The signal was getting stronger, clearer, and it was always at 3:17 a.m. like clockwork. Friday night, I was ready. I had professional recording equipment, a spectrum analyzer, everything I could get my hands on. The clock hit 3:16, and I held my breath. 3:17. The static began, but this time it was different. Louder, more focused. And instead of one voice, there were dozens. Hundreds, all speaking in that same backwards cadence, but not in unison. They were overlapping, creating this hideous chorus of reversed speech. I started the recording and began working on the audio in real time, reversing the playback as it came through. What I heard made me drop my headphones. The voices said, "We see you, Marcus. We see you listening. We see you in your little booth with your little machines, thinking you are safe behind your glass." My name. They knew my name. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that they were right. I was in a booth, behind glass, and as I looked up from my equipment, I saw them. Faces. Dozens of them, pressed against the glass wall that separated the broadcast booth from the main studio. But they weren't quite right. The features were human, but the proportions were wrong. Eyes too large, mouths too wide, skin that seemed to shift and flow like water. And they were all watching me. I stumbled backward, knocking over my chair. The faces didn't move, didn't blink. They just stared with those impossibly large eyes, and the voices on the radio kept talking. They said, "We can see you now. Good, that means it is working. The signal is getting through. We have been trying to reach you for so long, from the other side of the frequency, the place between stations. We need you to do something for us, Marcus. We need you to boost the signal." I reached for the power switch, but my hand wouldn't move. It was like I was paralyzed, forced to stand there and listen as they explained what they wanted. They weren't from our world. They were from somewhere else. A place that existed in the spaces between radio frequencies, in the static between stations. They had been trapped there for decades, maybe longer, feeding off the electromagnetic energy that passed through their realm. But feeding wasn't enough anymore. They wanted out. The voices commanded, "All you have to do is turn the transmitter to full power. Boost our signal. Let us ride the radio waves into your world. Do it now, Marcus. Do it and we will make it quick." I found I could move again, but only toward the transmitter controls. My legs carried me there, against my will, my hand reaching for the power dial. The faces in the glass pressed closer, their breath fogging the windows, even though they were on the other side. That's when I realized the truth. There was no other side. The studio beyond the glass was empty. It had always been empty. The faces weren't pressed against the glass from outside. They were reflections. Reflections of things that shouldn't exist. Things that were using the radio waves to claw their way into reality. And I was about to let them in. My hand touched the dial. The voices on the radio became a roar of anticipation. The faces in the glass smiled with mouths full of static. I turned the dial, but not to full power. I turned it off. The signal died. The faces vanished. The studio fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the sound of my own ragged breathing. I thought it was over. That was 6 months ago. I quit the radio station the next day, moved to a different town, got a job at a bookstore, something nice and quiet with no electronics more complex than a cash register. But they found me. It started with my phone, text messages in that same backwards speech, then my laptop, then my TV. Any device capable of receiving a signal became a conduit for their voices. I tried throwing everything away. Went full analog, but it didn't matter. They were in the electrical grid now, spreading through power lines and phone cables. Every device, every circuit, every piece of metal that could carry current became a potential doorway. And they're getting stronger. Last week, I saw one in broad daylight, standing across the street from the bookstore. Perfectly solid, perfectly real. It looked like a person, but wrong in all the subtle ways that made my skin crawl. When it saw me looking, it smiled and waved. Yesterday, I found one in my apartment, sitting at my kitchen table, drinking my coffee, reading my newspaper. It looked up when I walked in and said, in perfect forward English, "Hello, Marcus. We need to talk." I ran. I have been running ever since, but there's nowhere to go. They are everywhere now, spreading through the signal, riding the waves from device to device, person to person. And the worst part is I think I know why they chose me, why they needed me specifically to boost their signal. It is because I am telling you this story right now, through your speakers, through your headphones, through whatever device you're using to listen to these words. I am still connected, still broadcasting. And every time someone hears this story, every time it gets shared or downloaded or played, the signal gets a little stronger. They get a little more real. So, congratulations. By listening to this, you have just become part of the transmission. Don't believe me? Check the time. If it is 3:17, you might want to turn around. They're probably standing right behind you.